In this video, I'm going to give you more than 100 ways to refuse an unwanted invitation to go out for a coffee or a drink at work. One of the interesting things about communication is the more complicated and difficult a communication situation is, normally the more variety of ways there are to try to say the difficult thing. And this is really clear when you consider a situation like having to refuse an unwanted invitation. It turns out there are dozens and dozens of different ways to refuse an unwanted invitation, all at various levels of politeness. And I'm going to try to illustrate a bunch of them. I won't have time to explain every one of them. I really want to illustrate the variety. Hi, everybody. I'm Bruce Lambert from How Communication Works. This is a channel where I teach you about communication skills so you can improve your relationships, succeed at work, and be more confident. Now, I'm a college professor. I've been teaching communication for more than 35 years. I'm a scientist. I have hundreds of publications, and I've been a consultant and traveled all around the world teaching people how to communicate. And one of the most interesting things about what I've taught is this relationship between the difficulty of the situation and the variety of ways of communicating in that situation. So I want to illustrate that with this unwelcome invitation situation. So let's imagine you're at work and someone comes over to your desk and they give you an invitation that you don't really want to accept. Would you like to grab a drink or coffee after work? The inviter says. Now, I've derived more than 100 different ways to say this, and they're all derived from Brown and Levinson's 1987 book, Politeness, Some Universals in Language Use. Now, this is a book I've talked about a lot on the channel. It's a book that talks about how in many, many different languages all over the world, the same basic politeness strategies are used, or there's evidence for the same 4 basic politeness strategies. That is, depending on how face-threatening the action is that you're doing, you can do things in 4 different ways. You can do them bald on the record. That's you could just say them without any hesitation. You can say them directly. You can say them on the record with redress. That is, you can be a little bit nice about it. You can pay attention to the person's desire to be liked and approved of. We call that positive politeness. Or you can pay attention to their desire to be left alone. And we call that negative politeness. Or you can be indirect. You can say the thing by not saying the thing. And you can rely on the other person to make an inference about what you really meant. It turns out there are dozens of ways of being indirect about this situation, and I'm going to give you a bunch of examples. Now, in each one, I'm going to give a kind of technical description for what's going on. I don't expect you to understand all those technical descriptions, but if you want me to explain them in another video, I will. I just want to illustrate all the different things you can do to politely refuse this invitation. I'm going to illustrate the strategies in order of increasing politeness, beginning with the most direct and the least polite, and progressing to the least direct and the most polite. And in each of the strategies, when I describe the kind of technical strategy, I might talk about the hearer. That's a person who's being spoken to when you're refusing the invitation. And the speaker, that's the person who's speaking the invitation. So the first and least polite way to refuse the invitation is just called bald on the record. Bald, like no hair, meaning that there's no adornment on your refusal. There's nothing fancy about it. You just say the thing without any elaboration. So bald on the record refusal will be something like, I decline your invitation. Or they say, would you like to go to coffee? You say, I would not like that. Or they say, would you like to go to coffee? You say, no. That's bald on the record. That's the least polite, most direct thing you would say. The next more polite thing you would say is on the record with redress. Redress means putting a little sugar on it, putting a little cherry on it, sweetening the refusal a little bit so it doesn't threaten face so much, so it doesn't hurt so much. And one way to do this is to claim common ground between the speaker and the hearer, or to convey interest and admiration, or to notice the hearer's interests, wants, and needs. So you might say something like, how kind of you to ask, but no. Or you could exaggerate interest or sympathy with the hearer. You look so sharp today, but I don't want to go for coffee. Hey, great job on that TPS report, but I don't want to go for coffee. Or you can intensify your interest in the subject to the hearer. You love that new coffee shop, don't you? But no. Or you could claim in-group membership, like you're members of the same group. And you could do this by using in-group identity markers like, I don't want to, buddy. I don't want to, pal. I don't want to, bro. Any of these might work. Or you can use other in-group language or dialect, whatever is the dialect or in-group language in your group. Dude, pal, buddy, bro, no way. Or you could use jargon or slang. All of this kind of communicates familiarity or affiliation between you and the person you're speaking to. So, no Java for this, hombre. Or you could claim common ground in terms of your point of view or opinions or attitudes or knowledge or empathy. You could seek agreement about the activity. Hey, that would be fun, wouldn't it? But no thanks. You could explicitly say no and say yes at the same time to avoid the appearance of disagreement. You say, yeah, cool. No thanks. You could presuppose common ground between you and the hearer. Something like, after a day like today, we sure could use a drink, couldn't we? But no thanks. Or let's not. Or we need to stay late to finish this project, so no thanks. Or isn't that a lovely invitation, but no thank you. You could joke. Say something like, no, hot drinks are just not my cup of tea, get it? Or, boy, I need a strong drink to forget about this pile of work, but no thanks. You could convey that the speaker and the hearer are cooperating in this activity. So, for example, you could indicate that the speaker knows the hearer's wants and is taking them into account. And you could do this by asserting or presupposing the speaker's knowledge and concern for the hearer's wants. Something like, I know you hate to drink alone, but no thanks. Or, I know how much you like to check out new places, but no thanks. Or, I know you need to decompress after a long day, but no thanks. Notice that all of these are still on the record. You're still explicitly refusing the invitation, but you're doing all this other stuff in order to convey politeness. And remember, politeness is a ritualized way of showing respect for the dignity of another person. You're basically saying, I know what I'm doing is face-threatening. It can hurt your feelings. It can threaten your desire to be liked and approved of in this case. By being polite and doing it politely, I signal that I know I'm hurting your feelings and I don't like to be doing it. And I know that you're a person with dignity who deserves to have their feelings respected. That's what politeness does in a ritualized way. So even more strategies. You could claim that we each want each other's wants to be satisfied. So something like, no, I'll stay and finish the report. You go ahead and get some coffee. Or you can make a promise about the future. I promise we'll get coffee together next week, but not today. Or you could be optimistic. I'm sure you won't mind if I decline your invitation. No, you'll go ahead and enjoy it without me, won't you? Or you can include both of you in the act as if you're both sort of agreeing to refuse. Let's agree to do it another day. Yeah, we need to do that real soon, but not today. You could give or ask for reasons about the invitation. Why don't we do it on a day we're not so busy? Or, I really value our relationship, so I don't want to mess it up with anything outside of work. You could claim reciprocity, the reciprocal kind of set of obligations between you and the person you're speaking to. So you could assert or assume there's this reciprocal relationship. You could say, no, we have to help each other keep a boundary between our personal and professional lives. You could fulfill the hearer's want for something that they might like. So you could figuratively give gifts or sympathy or goods or understanding or cooperation to the hearer. No thanks, but here, have a cookie. No, but I'll stay late and help with that presentation. No, I'm sorry to disappoint you. And now we move to negative politeness. So negative politeness strategies pay attention to the hearer's desire to be left alone, to be unimpeded, to be able to do what they want to do without anyone bothering them. The first negative politeness strategy that Brown and Levinson suggests is just being conventionally indirect. That means you're technically being indirect. It's so obvious that it will be heard as directness. So would you like to go to coffee or a drink? And now you're conventionally indirect. So you refuse the invitation in the most conventional way. So you say, I'm busy. I can't. I'm unavailable. I won't be able to. I don't want to. All these are conventionally indirect because you're technically not saying I refuse the invitation, but you're refusing all the conditions that would make it possible for you to accept the invitation. You could question or hedge your ability to do the thing. You say, I'm not sure I can. I'm not sure I want to. I'm not sure I should. Or you say, it might be good not to. Today kind of doesn't work for me. Maybe, perhaps, I wonder, I'm thinking it might be a better idea not to. All these are hedges. You could say something like, well, I'll decline if that's okay, or I think I should decline. Don't you agree? Or I should decline, it seems. Or I decline if you'll forgive me, if you don't mind. I decline if that's all right. Or you could say something like, this may not be what you want to hear. This may not be the answer you want, but no thanks. Or you say, oh, hey, by the way, anyway, no thanks. Or you could say, while I'm thinking of it, no thanks. Or you could say, excuse me, but no thanks. We would normally say, excuse me, when we bump into someone. That's conventional apology, negative politeness. Say, excuse me, but no thanks. Or you could say, you don't want me to join you. Or if you'll permit me, I'll decline. Or, well, I don't think I can. The other option that Brown and Levinson give here is not to coerce the other person. So give the option not to do the act. So you can be indirect. Again, you can question or hedge. You can say, there's no way I can say no, is there? Or, you don't want me to go if I don't want to, right? Could you let me off the hook this time? You could also not assume that the hearer is able or willing to do the act. In this case, you can question or hedge. You go ahead without me, if you please. Or assume that the hearer isn't likely to do the act, so be pessimistic. You're not going to be able to let me say no, are you? Or, could you, would you, should you, might you go by yourself today? Or, I don't suppose there's any chance of you giving me a rain check, or I don't imagine there's any possibility of you giving me a rain check. All these are expressing pessimism. One other way you can do it is to minimize the face threat. So you know that refusing an invitation is face threatening, meaning you are threatening the desire of the inviter to be liked and approved of and to get you to do what they want. And by saying no, it's embarrassing or humiliating or face threatening to them. So you can minimize the imposition by saying things like, could I just say no this one time? It's really no big deal for me to beg out today, is it? You could just go without me today. Or you can give deference to the other person. Something like, no, sir, I can't. Or I wouldn't be a proper companion for you. Or you can communicate your desire not to impinge on the hearer in some way. One way to do this might be to apologize. Sorry to bother you, but could you let me off the hook tonight? Or, I hate to impose, I hate to trouble you, but you'll need to find another drinking buddy tonight. Or, I hope you don't mind me asking you to allow me to decline your kind offer. Or, sorry, I know it's hard to find someone else to go with at the last minute. Or, I'm totally exhausted. Sorry. All of these apologies are a conventional kind of politeness. Another way to be polite is make it not personal. Make it seem like there's a policy that prevents you from accepting the invitation. So something like, policy says no socializing between employees. It's expected that we keep our relationship strictly professional. One should not mix business with pleasure. It seems tonight is not a good night. I wondered, or I felt, or I thought, or I hoped I might decline. I was wondering whether you could accept my regrets. You could state the face-threatening act, that is the refusal, as a general rule. Superiors and subordinates cannot date. You can nominalize. You could turn it into a noun. It is my regret that I cannot join you. You can go on the record as incurring a debt to the speaker or as not making them in your debt. So something like, I'd be eternally grateful if you could let me reschedule. I'd never be able to repay you if you would allow me to decline. The third strategy is off the record. In this strategy, you're not actually explicitly, literally refusing the invitation. You are indirectly refusing the invitation in a way that relies on them to get the hint that you are refusing the invitation. And by not saying it directly, even if you know they're going to get the hint, by saying it indirectly, this conveys that you know that they are a person with dignity who would rather not have their invitations refused. And so by saying it indirectly, you are conveying to them that you know this and you are ritually showing politeness. So here are the off-the-record strategies. The first, you just invite an inference, or what's called an implicature, by violating the norms of conversation. So one thing you can do is be intentionally irrelevant, and this will cue them to make an inference. So you do things like give hints. Whew, look at this stack of reports I have to get through. Or I'm really beat. Or I've had enough coffee for today. Or I need to call my boyfriend after work. These are all hints that you're not available to go out for coffee or a drink. The other way you can violate the norms of conversation and invite an inference is to say too much or not enough. So you can understate. You say something like, coffee, huh? Or you can say, not too excited about going out drinking. Or you could overstate rather than understating. I got like 1,000 billion things left on my to-do list today. I've got to finish these TPS reports. Then I got to go work on a spreadsheet. Then I got to prepare those PowerPoint slides. Then I got to practice my talk. Or you could use tautologies. These are circular sayings that really say the same thing twice. So something like, coffee is coffee, drinks are drinks. And you inviting them to make the inference that you're not interested in accepting the invitation. You could violate the norms of conversation and thereby invite an inference by being untruthful or non-literal, things like using contradictions. We're friends, but not that kind of friends. Well, yes, I can, and no, I can't. You could be ironic. Why don't we skip the drinks and head straight back to my place? Or, I'm sure my husband wouldn't mind. Or, sure, who cares about my reputation? Or, the hell with those professional boundaries, right? Or, sure, I was just kidding when I asked you before to stop asking me out. Or you can use metaphors and in this way invite an inference. You're a real man about town, aren't you? Don Juan here. You're all over me like white on rice, aren't you? Or you could use rhetorical questions. How many times do I have to remind you that I'm married? Have you forgotten company policy? What did HR say about continuing to ask colleagues out on dates? Or other rhetorical questions. Why do we put so much emphasis on maintaining professional boundaries anyway? Do we care about what people say? Office romances never turn out badly, do they? All of these will invite the inference by being ironic that you don't mean what you say. The next strategy of indirectness, off-record indirectness, not conventional indirectness, which is really a kind of being direct, but off-record indirectness is being vague or ambiguous. So you can be ambiguous. Prior commitment. Or be vague. I don't know. I'm not sure. Or I have some stuff to do. Or something came up. Or you can overgeneralize about the situation. Dating coworkers never works out. Going out after work always sends the wrong message. Or you could kind of factor the hearer out of your refusal and pretend to be talking to someone else. Say, I just told Mary I couldn't go out tonight. Didn't I, Mary? Or you can be incomplete. Maybe I should, or you say, I don't, well, and the hesitation itself will invite the inference that you don't want to go. And finally, the most polite thing in Brown and Levinson's categorization of politeness is just to avoid doing the face-threatening act. So in this case, the face-threatening act is refusing the invitation. So you could just avoid doing the face-threatening act. You just say, sure, I'd love to go. So you could accept the invitation when you want to decline it. And sometimes we do this. Sometimes doing the face-threatening thing is so face-threatening that we choose not to do it. We take one for the team and we just do something we don't want to do because to refuse to do it would just be too face-threatening in that situation. It's not worth the trouble. So there you have it. Dozens of different ways to refuse an invitation. Now, it's not like I expect you to memorize these. This is really just an illustration of the wide variety of possible responses that language gives to us, especially in situations that are intrinsically difficult or face-threatening. It's like the language has grown up all of these resources and provided them to us, the more difficult the situation is. And the only thing that we have to do as communicators, as we become more skillful, is just to learn all these different strategies. And ultimately, we have a lot of them at our disposal as we grow older and more skillful in our communication. If you like this kind of video, please give me a like and subscribe to the channel. If you're interested in learning more about communication skills, go on over to my website, howcommunicationworks.com, and sign up for my mailing list. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.